I want to welcome you to the Engineer Your Success podcast with Dr. James Bryant. I have the pleasure of having a great guest for you today. We have Josh Muller is here today to just talk and have a great time about where he's at in life, how he's transitioning his coaching practice, and how he's built his practice from his own past experience. Josh, how you doing, man?
Doing great. How are you?
I am doing excellent. Now, we're going to have your bio in the show notes, but I want the listeners to get to know you a little bit better, to understand who Josh is. So tell us a few things that would not show up in the bio that they're going to read about you.
All right. Well, one of the things is I'm a father of three. Got three rowdy kids, and two boys and one girl. The girl's the sweet but crazy one, and keeps our world rocking. But yeah, I've been married for a long time, 22, 23 years now going on. Been enjoying life. I actually have a musical background too. I played in a couple cover bands. That's kind of an odd thing that has been part of my life, but it's something I do for fun and
Cool.
don't do it currently, but I loved what I did. So
I see you have like a light blue guitar in your background. What's the story behind the guitar?
yeah, it's mostly a prop. So I share a bigger co-working space with some other people, and that's some of their relics. I also have some recording equipment behind me. So we all kind of are musicians and people that enjoy that kind of thing. And that's one of the things they've thrown up there. But that
Oh,
was one of their personal guitars. So yeah.
so that is cool. So as this podcast really targets professionals and business owners with an engineering, science and technology type background, and that would include the construction industry. We had a brief talk, a few weeks ago, and I wanted to get you in on the show because I thought you had a fascinating background, just talking about your journey in construction and in the trades, and I thought that it would be a benefit to our listeners. So let's get rolling, man.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Do you want me to share some of what a history with it? That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. Share your
Yeah.
history.
So I came out of I grew up on a farm and grew up. My dad was a farmer builder combo guy. So I've got trades and engineering in my background. My uncles and my dad used to build stuff whenever they would see a need when something wasn't made properly or heavy duty enough. They would say there's got to be a better way. And so
Mhm.
they'd go into their shop. They built homemade lathing systems. They built all kinds of stuff. They were welders, builders. So I had the privilege of having that in my background of just guys that were tinkerers that some would call them hillbillies, but Canadian hillbillies is a little different, but engineers done around need. And so out of that, there's got to be a better way. I always had this desire to build and do things just like them.
Mhm.
And so I went to college, got a degree I didn't use very much,
What,
but
what
had
was
the
what was
college.
what was your degree in, Josh? What is your degree in?
Well, I actually went to school for missions and Bible missionary work in a foreign country and didn't end up going.
Okay.
That's another sub part of my life. But even in that, thought about using building and engineering in the field, to help other people grow, start little micro businesses. That was part of what I was going to school for. But when I came out, got back in the building industry, I had a guy right out of college. He said, "Hey, can you come work for my company? We're short on labor." I said,
Hmm.
"Sure. I don't have a job yet. I'll come work for you." Well, I showed up on a Friday, got hired in. We were working on a big remodeling of a courthouse in Ohio, and
Hmm.
um, showed up, and then right away on the Monday following, uh, I was there by myself, and I was wondering what's going on. And the GC of the company came later that morning and said, "Here's the binder. You need to hire a whole new crew. you just moved from laborer to running this company, running this part of the job.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, what? And he goes, yeah, all the guys that were on your company, on your job, couldn't pass a drug test, so they're all fired.
Ooh,
And I was
ooh.
like, so from clean living, I basically was offered an opportunity to run my first job within the first weeks of being in a company.
Oh, wow.
So that took me to a steep learning curve,
Mm-hmm.
which I really thoroughly enjoyed. They put me through a bunch of training, and I just got my hands on stuff. And I said, I'm going to take this opportunity and I'm going to run with it. Had very little responsibility
Yeah. So
with my
wait, wait,
family
wait,
at
wait,
that time.
wait a minute, Josh. So you coming out of school, you get your degree. The guy says, "Come on, we want you to go ahead and build something. Can you help me with this?" You're like, "Oh yeah, sure, help." You're hired. You start the job. Everybody's gone,
Yeah.
and now you have to. What were you thinking? What were your emotions? How were you feeling at that time, man?
Well, a little bit nervous, but I was also in this naive point in life where I didn't even know what really he was telling me I was in for. Um, so out of a little bit of naive moment, I said, yeah, sure, let's do this. And, it was pretty hard. And I had to do a lot of hustling around to work and find people to work there. And I also did a ton of hands-on, just dove in. And at that point in my life, I had tons of energy and no
Yeah,
fear. So,
yeah. Were there
uh,
any lessons that you've carried forward from that particular incident that you can say that has really helped you along your journey as you continue to develop your career and start your company and do some of the other things that you've been doing?
yeah, yeah, good question. A few things that really stuck out to me is that if you decide in your mind that you can do something and you have any remote capabilities like you're breathing and you have half a mind,
Yeah.
um, you can make something. That's the beauty of America, like we are free to experiment with our lives to try and grow something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that. I really also gathered that what I really needed to do is put good people around me if I was going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
um, i didn't um, I didn't have a lot of that in my background, although because I just hung out with the guys that were around me.
Yeah.
But to go and seek and find people to fill roles that I knew needed certain capabilities, I had to do that on the fly, and I had to judge character pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so I had to build a sniff test, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
of what is valuable and what is not. So,
Okay. Cool, man. All right. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought it was important that we kind of captured that
yeah.
moment just in terms
Oh, for sure.
of your progress. And so, all right. So now, you've gotten over that hurdle. You're
Yeah.
doing well in that area. And then what was next for you?
Yeah. So I worked I worked for that company for a while, and then their residential division was taken off like crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and commercial was kind of chilling a little bit as far as volume we were putting out. And so I had an opportunity to shift over into the residential space, building out neighborhoods basically. So that was a little bit of a pivot for me. I ran a bunch of neighborhood development pieces
Okay.
and had some fun doing that. Ended up being basically back to almost a lower position though for a while because just the pecking order,
Mm-hmm.
got to work back into it, change of position.
Yeah.
Um, but it taught me, I needed to value every minute. So I would walk around with all these different trades. I was more in the general, I worked for the GC as more of a site supervisor, worker, making sure that everybody did what they were supposed to or had what they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I got to hang out with a lot of trades, which was really great. Like the job before, I was hanging out with a lot of trades and engineers and other people too, but this was more on like a home level. It was a little closer to what I wanted to do long term. But in that space, I met a lot of great guys in their field and kind of got excited about, there's a lot of old men doing trade work, and they have a lot of tribal knowledge, a lot of wisdom that honestly, like, if you didn't capture it all, it was going away.
Yeah.
And a lot of the younger guys coming up weren't the same quality. And a lot of that is just that there was no transfer. And so I learned a lot about that and got passionate about it, and was put into some opportunities to then eventually I started my own company.
Yeah.
And decided I wanted to go out on my own and do my own thing. And then the recession hit, which was like, okay, well, that's just great. Nobody wants to buy new houses.
Yeah.
So I pivoted into remodeling, which was a mixed bag. There were lots of opportunities because people wanted to finish their basements. They wanted to redo their kitchens. They wanted to redo their bathrooms, the normal the big three that everybody wants to do.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they don't have as many basements down south, but anyway, decks, kitchens, bathrooms, basements, those were kind of the bread and butter. And I had a great opportunity to do that. Had lots of guys joining up with me to do that. We had probably at one point about 8 people working in my company.
Okay.
Full time, and then a bunch of sub trades. So it was great until it wasn't. Different people started to have different expectations, and every time we'd go to do a job, we'd run into this. People call them Karens today, but it was kind of the unreal expectation people.
Yeah.
They're in some kind of parallel universe with mindset. And they don't think about other people. Yeah. And so I started running into these problems again and again and again. And it wasn't my guys that I was having trouble with. It was the customer and the client base that we were working with. We didn't qualify them very well.
Understood.
We didn't disqualify them from our operation. So we ended up taking on a lot of jobs that were just headaches over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And, this led me to think I really need to get some help in mindset. I really need to figure out why I keep on running into this. Mm-hmm. And so I had a buddy who had become a business coach out of, he had been working in the doors and windows as installation space he's a contractor for probably 20 years.
Okay.
But then he shifted and said, I want to have something that I can influence people with. And that's kind of what led me to come and spend some time with him. Mm-hmm. And it was out of frustration, and it was out of economic loss, and just constantly beating my head against a wall in frustration. I reached out to somebody, and that's kind of where I got my head clear about some things.
Cool. So there's a lot to unpack here. One of the things that you talked about when you were still working for the other company, you shifted to residential, you had the ability or the opportunity to really hang out with a lot of folks that had a lot of wisdom, that were in the trades, that were doing their jobs and could do it very well. They not only understood the technical part of the job, but the art part of the job and what they were crafting. And one of the observations is that, hey, some of these younger guys that are coming in, they don't have that same skill in art. And you know what? I need to hang around some of these older guys and get some of their wisdom, because there's not a lot of transfer going on. So it's really cool that you were able to take advantage of that opportunity to get the wisdom while it was there. And then that helped springboard you to start your own business. You're raring, you're ready to go. Boom, recession hits. Yeah. Nobody's building houses. So you shift, right? So you shifted into remodeling. You were able to show that flexibility. But at some point, and I think this happens to all of us, we reach that point where we've shifted, we're going in a certain direction, and we need help figuring out kind of what the next thing is going to be. whether it's frustration, you were talking about economic loss, you were able to reach out to somebody whom you had some kind of relationship with, who was doing the windows and doors. Now they're coaching and they were able to help provide you some additional perspective to help you move
Right.
forward to figure out what was next.
Yeah. And, you know, in that time, there was a lot of mud that started to accumulate,
Yeah.
if you will,
Mhm.
almost like a slurry mix of concrete around my feet,
Yeah.
just slowing me down and becoming really hard and fast. And um, it took away the joy of doing the work
Hmm.
because I started to just turn into this stress ball like constantly. And it was really affecting my family interaction. I'd come home and I would just be mentally and physically cashed.
Yeah.
And I realized there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something out there that I am just not seeing, that I'm blind to, that I'm stuck in. So that was really, out of those pain points of my family suffering, my relationship with my spouse suffering, um, you know, working, getting to a job site at 7 in the morning and getting home at 7 at night,
Yeah.
and just realizing I'm not enjoying life. Even my vacations were half phone calls and putting out dumpster fires. And
Yeah.
so I was just like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something else I could do. And there's got to be something that can be more fulfilling and enriching. So that's where I was at.
So what was your better way? So you know, there's got to be a better
Yeah.
way. Something has to change. You reach out to your friend, you get help, you get some clarity, and then what happens?
Yeah. Well, in that process of getting some clarity, I realized that a lot of it was around that it was too tied to me as a person.
Hmm.
I was wearing all the hats. I wasn't delegating. I was really holding, what they say, holding to the vine really hard. You know,
Hmm.
you grip a rope and you're falling, you've
Yeah.
got rope burn. You know, I had callus and welts galore from rope burn. So I was trying to hold on to everything. I was trying to make it sure that it was mine,
Hmm.
um, and had my DNA, my fingerprints, my controlling mindset. My wife will tell you I can be a little bit of a control freak around ideas, but it's mostly because I want it done right. You know,
Hmm.
what's worth doing is worth doing right. And in that, I started to then suffocate myself by maybe hanging myself by that rope.
Hmm.
And it wasn't freeing, it wasn't enjoyable, it was all work and very little gain. Um, and
So
so
instead of building a business, you built a prison.
yeah,
In a
built the
sense, something
prison
that was like keeping you
and I tied the
captive.
noose.
Yeah.
And it was only a matter of time.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was really desperate. It was really becoming to a point where communication was breaking down in my company. I was getting angry around things with my guys, and they really weren't the contributing factor to me being angry. It
Hmm.
was that I was at times being a seagull manager, you know, flying in and crapping on them and then leaving.
Yeah.
I just, because I had a limited capacity to keep moving forward and getting anywhere. I
Wow.
was, I was trapped in my own cage that I was building, and I was angry, and I was roaring at everybody. Um, and my wife saw that quite often, and she would say to me, "You need to get help."
Hmm.
Like, and she, was threatening certain things because of just protecting herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't a good scene.
Yeah.
And just being real, like, that was the lowest point of my life, was right before I got some other voices to speak into me and shake me loose of the things that I had been holding on to.
Oh wow.
So I started to work with this coach, and he was an EOS, entrepreneurial operating system
Hmm.
specialist. And so he taught me the system that they used, and really got into talking about systems and building a team, and stop being an individual, taking off your hats, that you're wearing and make them seats in your company
Mm-hmm.
so that the load is spread out. A lot of these different thoughts are just super good leadership tactics,
Yeah.
And so that started to really wake me up and set me free. And the more that I developed those systems and put those people in place, the freer and freer I got.
Oh, cool.
And it changed my demeanor. It changed my my operating space. It helped me to be more interested in the projects and less in the dumpster fires. I let other people kind of step into those roles and do the things that I am not good at as well. I was in my own way.
Wow.
So,
and I imagine that it had a positive impact on your home life as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. It set us free to be happy again. Just come home and not be like every day I hate life and so I'm miserable to be with, and so that really set us free on a path of rediscovering our family and rediscovering family time and going to the lake and going on vacations, getting to the mountains like I like to, all these different things that was missing. And life is supposed to be enjoyable, or why are we even doing anything?
Yeah. Oh man, listen, Josh, I want to applaud you for your level of self-awareness, right? To be able to talk about the issues that you were facing and to allow other people to speak into your life and to hear your wife as she's saying, hey, there's some issues here. You need to figure this out. This isn't fun anymore. You need to work that. Yeah. To be able to hear that and eventually take action is very admirable. And I just applaud you for being able to do that. There are people that are going to be listening to this episode that may be where you were, right? They may be struggling with issues. They may be struggling with work. They may be struggling with their family life. And what we talk about is really helping people win at work and at home. It's so important to understand that we are people first, and the people issues matter. They show up at work. And guess what? When you have work issues that are going on, guess where those frustrations are going to bubble up at? They're going to bubble up at home. And so it's not an either or. We have to be successful and set up a winning strategy for both, to be able to be successful both at home and at work.
Yeah. One of the major things that shifted for me was the why. Why was I going to work? Why was I doing what I was doing? And I think out of the past, it might've been, I was trying to prove myself, or I was trying to be recognized by my peers. And recognized as an authority in a space. But that only holds value to the point that it gives you life. And it wasn't life-giving. It was life-taking. It was life-sucking, if you will. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so you made the transition. You're now going, you're putting systems in place. Things are happening. Life is great. And then what'd you do next?
Yeah. So I got to a point where people started to notice that I had some good things happening. My company was growing. I had some great opportunities to do some more commercial work I was remodeling a bunch of storefront spaces in a revitalizing downtown kind of neighborhood. And it was giving me some unique opportunities and unique relationships with some people. And I had a guy that I was working with say, hey, I like what you're doing. Can you teach me what you're doing? And then can I buy your company?
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I'll entertain that idea. So came along, we had some conversations, and then eventually they decided to make me an offer. And I said, I'll sell you my book of business, and I'll give the guys an option to go with you. And how's that sound? And they made the deal. And then that went on, and it was great. It was, I got what I wanted out of it, and got got to a point where, it was time to move on from that.
Yeah.
And right after that, the guy who'd been coaching me, he basically said, "Hey, you like this stuff, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good. Sure helped me." And so he said, "Well, I'm about to start trying to create something here where I have a few more coaches on board. Would you be interested in looking into it with me?" So I ended up doing that. I went through that time of growth pattern with him. He trained me on EOS, took me through a little bit deeper dive in it. And then I started as an assistant coach for him, working in meetings and meeting a whole bunch of companies, and
cool.
Got my teeth cut on that. And then, I actually got a call to go back into the construction industry for a brief stint. A guy who was running a company said, "Hey, why don't you come work for me for a while and help me turn my company around?" So I attempted to do that in-house, realized when you're on the fly and you're embedded with somebody, they don't want to listen.
Yep.
And so immediately 9 months later, jumped back into full-time coaching and said, "This is where I need to stay."
Okay.
So it's better for me to be objective and be outside of someone's group so that I have no restriction on me to be honest with them.
Yeah.
So
you have to be brutally honest. We have to be.
Yeah. And really the one big problem inside of companies too, that I keep on seeing is they're like pressed right up against their issues. They have no distance from their issues. Their nose is right on it.
Yes.
And so to get a visual and an awareness around what they need to be backed out to a different perspective, 1,000-foot view.
Yeah.
To see what their issues are.
And it's difficult to do that when you're embedded, because when you are part of the company, they don't see you as something external. You get mixed in with everything else that they're viewing kind of at eye distance. And even if you ask the right questions, the perspective that they're giving you is not going to be the same if they've hired you as a coach or a consultant to help them come and grow their business, or to help them come and deal with a particular issue. Because they're asking you, "Hey, I need your help with this." And so they're much more receptive to any of the ideals that you may help them come up with. And they can take ownership of that and run with it, versus when it's all internal.
Yep. And there's a sense too that, there's this pressure to perform when you're internal, that you've got these regular duties to do, these tasks that are already your day job.
Yeah.
And so to do leadership development along your day job is hard without someone poking you to keep on going.
Yeah.
Waking you up, if you will, to the things that you're forgetting is the most important work to do.
No, that's incredible, man. So you went into coaching, went to construction, popped right back out 9 months later into coaching. Now, one of the conversations that we've been having kind of offline is just the focus of your coaching practice from a marketing perspective and whom you're trying to reach. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what you're in, kind of where you are with that and where you're going.
Yeah. So I started kind of broad, and it was mostly because I had connection with other companies that were not in the construction space. But I realized very quickly that I need to talk about the things that I know really well for authority purposes. But I also wanted to just help a certain group and be really specialized versus just a big brush. I wanted to be a little more focused and pinpointed on certain things. So I started to think,
you mean you didn't want to help everybody? Josh, you didn't want to help everybody? Come on, man.
There's a need to help everybody, but to be realistic and sustainable, I thought, man, I should probably niche down. So out of that, I started to really think about who are the people I'm passionate about. What is the knowledge base that I already have, and who are the connections that I already have? And it just really made sense for me to think about the construction space. There's not a lot of people that are challenging construction people to be better.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of worried about it, that someday we're going to wake up and not be able to flush our toilets, and then there's no one to call. I'm kind of worried that someday we're going to lose power in our house, and there's no one that's going to come and make those connections, and we're going to be back to square one with things that, now I'm not a fatalist, but I'm being honest that there is a sharp cliff that's coming
Yeah.
of people that we have a drop off of knowledge in this country around the trades. And so I'm pretty passionate about, there's got to be a better way
Mm-hmm.
to do this connectivity piece and training piece, and to get people excited about trades again. But one of the biggest things that stands in the way of those people wanting to come on board is it doesn't look like a very inviting space to most people. Education is heavily focused on people becoming lawyers and doctors, and not that it's anything wrong with doctors, but it's very much focused on the exit of school. 80 to 90% is focused towards getting a college degree, which is valuable, super valuable, but it's also super expensive and costly, and puts you in a debt to even get your life started. So I'm pretty interested in, how do we work with people to get them more interested in the trades. And I also want to work with the trades to see, they need to open that door. They need to make a landing point for people to come into that space, and they need to have companies that are worthwhile coming into.
Yeah.
And so that's the bigger answer, is to turn the bull's nose, if you will, grab them by the nose ring and turn them and say, hey, this is a big problem, and if you don't fix it, no one else will.
And that's it. That's interesting. A few things come to mind as you're working through niching down. And part of it is, we get into, you're looking at two different types of customers, so to speak. The one customer is the trade organizations and the trades. The other customer are the students, or the people that would be coming into the trades. And so there are two different types of messaging that you're dealing with. It's real easy to come up with messaging for the trades. You want to create areas of opportunity. You want to make sure that your workforce is here. You want to be relevant in the future. Come work with Josh. Josh is going to help you be relevant, in the future, as we build this, as we future-proof your company or your trade. I think the challenging one, it's not insurmountable, is the message for the people coming in, because you have to be able to articulate what problem it's solving for them. And if I take something that you talked about earlier, which is, we're going to wake up one day and the lights are going to be off and nobody's going to be able to fix it. We're going to wake up one day and flush the toilet and it's going to be stopped up, or it's going to be a plumbing issue, and we're not going to have anybody to fix it. You see it initially as what the problem is. I see it as the opportunity, right? I see it as, hey, here's an opportunity for you to create a career or something that is going to be long lasting, that will help you build wealth, that will help you build a family, will help you start a business, will help you do all of the things that you want to do. So it's just really being able to articulate that message from the standpoint of how it's going to help that particular individual. Yeah.
And I think there is a movement happening in this country to strengthen the middle class. And there's a process that's going on to say, okay, how do we make these jobs packageable and palatable, and actually take them from a dirge of work to something that is completely exciting, invigorating. As a kid, I was maybe a little bit weird. I used to love when Popular Mechanics magazine would come in the mail. It was like my jam. I was like, please let me read that. I want to see what the next technology that is coming that I can enjoy. Right. And every time I'd be like, that's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? Every single time. And so I'm seeing that there needs to be some excitement developed around the industry,
Okay.
whether it's newer technology of housing, whether it's just got to be stuff that gets people excited, that they want to be interested in, and then providing companies with a message that says, hey, we're the kind of company you want to come work for.
Yeah.
We've got this, and this already in place. This is the pay. This is the, but also, you know, people might get hired for benefits and pay and possibility.
Yeah.
But they stay around the people that take care of them while they're there. So
Yeah.
that's one of the other major elements that I want to dig into, is how do I make the best bosses out there for these guys?
Wow.
So
how do you make the best bosses? It sounds like a great program that you're putting together, Josh. It does. Absolutely. We've talked about a lot of different things during our time together today. You know, there's a few other questions that I would have. I typically will ask people just for a few general principles that you've been able to apply in your life to help you achieve success. We've talked about a few as we've stopped along the interview, but could you share a few more so that folks can have something to chew on and take back and kind of work towards?
Yeah. So probably the biggest thing that I learned that really helped me is a really good long-term vision for yourself. And if you have no direction, or you're just waffling or wavering out there in the wilds of life without a direction, it's pretty miserable, because you wake up every single day and you're like, what am I doing? Why am I here? What value do I even bring to the mix? So defining direction and purpose and what you want for life and out of life is the number one key thing that I would say. So that's number one. Number two would be, out of that moment, defining, okay, if I want to get there, if I want to have that dream, if I want to have those opportunities, I have to design it. And for your engineering people, designs all day, right?
Yep.
But we don't get anywhere with building something or making something without first putting it on paper and engineering it. So you're going to engineer life like you engineer a part or a piece.
Yeah.
And the components have to line up for the greater good.
Yeah.
And so everything that we touch needs to be a design element to fix the problem we're having towards a better future. So that's one thing that I started to just look for in a mindset, saying, okay, I want that future. Now, what are the things I need to design that make every single day a little bit better?
Yeah.
And so I just started to gather people and information and tools and build a system for my own company that just worked. And if it wasn't working, I'd have awareness around those pieces. So that's the third part. The third part is building in catch points and awareness alarms that help you to see when the system's broken or not working before it turns into a dumpster fire. You know, when there's some kind of low oil, or you know, there's something's not performing and there's wear points, you need to be aware, and then you need to redesign, or you need to find someone that can help you with that point.
Yeah.
So, but part of that is getting a list of those things. The second part of that is finding a solution, and then just stepping into that space and having that awareness and knowledge is really, really powerful. The last thing that I would say is making measurable moments every single day work for you and not against you. So what I typically do is I develop these rocks, and that comes out of Stephen Covey's work, and EOS picked up on it, and some other people have talked about it too. But Actually comes kind of out of my childhood as an analogy. When I was real young, I would pick stones in a field. Now you guys must be thinking this guy's archaic, but my dad, every single year in Canada, in Canadian prairie fields, there are these things called frost rocks, and they pop up out of the ground. And if you don't take care of them, you keep tripping over on them, you break machinery on them, you go to harvest and all your machinery breaks.
Yeah.
Because you didn't first take care of the rocks in the field.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of built a life analogy out of that, saying, what are the rocks I keep on tripping over? You know, in your household, it might be the Legos that your kids put down on the floor that you step on in the night.
Yeah.
That kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Or that coffee table you stub your toe on every single night. You know, what is it that you keep on hurting yourself on that you just need to take care of? And so I started to design solutions around those, load it up, and every single month I'd have myself and my team just carry that weight, bring it to fruition as a solution, and then move on to the next thing. And doing those 4 major things in life are the key to most businesses growing 90% better.
Wow. So Josh's formula for being a rock star: get those rocks and move them out of the way if they are tripping you up. You know, deal with them and work with your team to develop solutions. One of the things you hit on in terms of engineering the life that you want, one of our things that we talk about is the engineer's blueprint for a balanced life. And so the engineer's blueprint is basically a 4-step process where first you determine what matters most. And then you compare kind of, you know, what you say matters to how you actually spending your time. Once you're able to see that gap, we ask, the next step is to, okay, visualize the future that you actually want. Spend time really visualizing it, really get familiar with it. Think about how you're going to feel once you are able to live that life. Then the third step is to design a plan. So you absolutely have to design a plan. The last step in the engineer's blueprint is to execute that plan. You have to execute. If you don't execute, you have nice things on paper, but you actually don't have the change that you desire. So, Josh, I want to thank you for your time. If the listeners want, we're going to put your contact information in the show notes, but if the listeners want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm also mostly just through my website, Josh at maplecreekcoaching.com. Everything should be able to get to from there.
All right. We'll make sure that we include those links in the show notes. Josh, again, I want to thank you for your time. I'm going to end this interview like I end every interview, and that is, many people know what to do. You know what? Fewer people actually know how to do it. And there's a select group of people that actually follow through, do it, and achieve the life of their dreams. Josh, I want to thank you for being part of that select few where you're actually doing it. You've designed the life that you want, and you are making it happen. Thank you again for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.